everyone. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio. Joanna Chodorowska, pleasure to have you on. And like I said, in that little intro there, I'm going to edit out. Empowered Light Holistic Expo is where I first heard about you. Didn't see your presentation, but contacted you and all the people at that presentation to be guests on my program. Before I let you on, a couple of disclaimers. Many of my listeners are probably sick of hearing this if you've been listening to my past shows, but for those that haven't heard the shows, I just want to get this out, and I'll say it only 3 or 4 more times. The next shows I do. Just a couple things here. First of all, my radio program may be in a little bit of trouble of getting kicked off YouTube. I got a message from YouTube saying that my channel has a lot of spam. Well, that's baloney, because all my show does and my channel does has interviews where I ask people questions and I answer them, and all I do is interviews. So I don't know how my channel can have spam. I presume the only reason my channel is in jeopardy of getting kicked off the air, eat your heart out, Alex Jones of InfoWars, is because my channel covers a lot of things that the powers that be don't want people to hear about. So, but other than that, I also want to point out that my listeners for the past 2.5 years, if you have been getting really pissed off about the fact that if you listen to my show with headphones, you hear my voice in one earphone and my guest voice in the other earphone, and that's because the past 2.5 years when I've been doing the Skype recorder, I've had it set to the stereo function. I had no idea that was the problem. Nobody said anything to me about it. I thought maybe it was some sort of a glitch or a sabotage or something, but it wasn't. It was because I had the Skype recorder on a stereo all that time. So all the interviews I've done, with the exception of the past dozen or so, over the past 2.5 years, if you listen to them, choose to listen with headphones, you're going to have to deal with my voice in one earphone and the guests in the other. If you don't like that and don't want to deal with that, well, I either don't listen to it with headphones and find a way that you can listen to it at a computer without any headphones. But if you do have to listen with headphones, well, that's just the way it is. Just deal with it. It is what it is, and I'm not going to bother doing anything to re-upload those interviews or anything. That's just the way it happens. So that's what I wanted to get out, and now it is your chance to introduce yourself for those that haven't heard about you. Tell us who you are, what you've experienced, how you got to doing what you do. Please be the best primary source that you can be. And then after you do that, I have no intention of interrupting you, by the way. I'm not like Alex.
You can interrupt all you want.
All right. Well, I don't have Alex Jones-itis. I may filibuster my guests before giving them the chance to speak, but I don't interrupt them. So without further ado, your life story, and then please regurgitate everything that you said in your presentation at the Empowered Light Expo. You got the floor.
I don't know if I'm going to regurgitate the whole thing at the expo, but I am going to introduce myself, and I am Joanna Chodorowska. I am the founder and CEO of Nutrition in Motion, and that is a sports nutrition therapy coaching company that I started 15 years ago. And basically what that does is fuel athletes' fun and fulfillment by balancing body, mind, spirit, and sport. So a little bit about how I actually got into it. And it's really, I had adrenal exhaustion 20 some years ago, where I was a competitive athlete. I was chasing that wonderful dream of success with blinders on. So I just kept going and going and going and ignored every sign that my body was giving me that it was shutting itself down. And because the mind is a very powerful thing, if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. So I didn't mind, and I just said, then I'm just going to keep going. And I'm going to keep doing my 2 workouts a day. I'm going to keep doing all this stuff and just drink coffee and have a Cliff Bar and just keep on going. Until one day I just couldn't do any of that stuff, and I constantly felt like I was basically tired, wired. I couldn't relax. I couldn't sit still. And just was completely dragging through the day. It felt like I had run a marathon every day, and I was at that time in the middle of just base training in the winter. So it was kind of, okay, I went to the doctor. They do some testing. I was seeing an alternative nutritionist. She suggested some other tests. And it wasn't really until I went in to see a medical intuitive that she basically was saying, I just see a shell of a person. There's nothing left. It's just your physical body, but that's it. There's no life left to you. You've been chasing this dream, and you're just completely exhausted, and your body doesn't know what to do. So I'm missing all the beauty that's all around me. And I'm like, what the hell? What are you talking about? Like I'm just chasing the dream. I'm trying to be successful. But it wasn't until after that whole episode of the adrenal exhaustion that I realized that one, the body has an innate ability to heal itself given tools. And some of the right tools include nutrition. And it's also having a full balance of body, mind, spirit. And since I do work with a lot of athletes, plus I am an athlete myself, it's also about balancing the sport and basically not running away from your stresses with all the sport, but to actually have it all in a healthy balance. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, balance is key when it comes to health, without question. And well, without further ado, what did you present at Empowered Light Expo? Well, I don't know what you meant when you say I don't know if I'm going to regurgitate everything. I mean, we got a full 2 hours at the most. Not that I suggest we go that long. People do have lousy attention spans, and it's only basically the subject of nutrition and health, mind, body, and spirit. But by all means, if you can give everything you said without abridging anything, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. I know it's audio only, so that may be a problem. I hope it's not, but by all means, please do, because I wasn't there. I'd like to see what I missed, hear what I missed, and
Yeah,
serve the listeners.
I'll give you a short synopsis. It's like a lot of what I do now is basically I call myself a holistic nutrition therapy coach. I also do energy work. I'm a minister. I'm an author. I'm a speaker, and I'm still a competitive triathlete. But a lot of what I do is identify the real cause of people's symptoms, and basically help to rebalance the body with nutrition, mostly being real food. Sometimes supplements are indicated. Then I use the Path to Heal energy work and essential oils to basically bring the body back to balance. I also create that safe space for my clients so that they can actually unload a lot of that emotional and mental stress, and they know that there's going to be no judgment in this place, because a lot of times it's the judgment that really is the trigger that causes a lot of the food issues that people have, and the lack of self-love. So I basically help to transmute any negativity into positivity, try to create that space of loving, and also just with the energy work, it's really identifying some of those underlying issues that are causing some of the physical symptoms. Because I think you well know, Andrew, that, we might have physical symptoms, but it could be that there's some emotional trigger that is unresolved, that is just sitting under the surface or in the subconscious, that is coming up to be healed, but typically, most of us want to just shove it back into that box and keep it hidden so it's in a safe place, not knowing that it's really generating an energy block in various centers of the body. And a lot of times it's those physical issues like the GI distress, body pain, tooth pain, headaches, fatigue. All those kinds of things are just symptoms that we are misaligned in our purpose here on Earth. So in terms of the talk that I did in Oaks, it was called What About Me? And What About Me really is based on the premise of we're in this fast-paced world and we just want to go, go, go. And it kind of sounds like me, 20 years ago, where you were just chasing that dream of success, and we'll do anything to achieve that success, with completely ignoring what our body signals are and ignoring what the divine insight is to fulfillment and fun. And we just keep chasing that dream, chasing somebody else's definition of success, just so that we can have the things that we want. And at some point we sometimes get sick, and debilitatingly sick, just so that we can have that wake-up call. And God basically says, this isn't what I had planned for you. I want you to do something else that is going to help heal others or help others in some other way to have a more fulfilling life. So if you imagine a stool, and that top of the stool is you, there can either be 3 legs or 4 legs to the stool. And if you focus on one stool, or one leg of the stool more than the other two, the other two may get shaky and wobbly or break, and all of a sudden your stool isn't really supporting you in any way, shape, or form. So the time to take care of you is really all the time. It's almost like you get on a plane and they say, put your oxygen mask on. And put your oxygen mask on first so that you can help others. So it sounds all great in theory, but it's usually these debilitating symptoms and illnesses that we get that we are then forced to take care of ourselves because we have to take care of ourselves. And it really should be a priority every single day of really nurturing ourselves on the emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical planes, not just one and the others get no attention. So when we look at these 4 legs of the stool, the first one that most of us focus on is the physical leg. And that's how we eat, move, and sleep. So if we eat, move, and sleep better, we're going to feel better. We're going to feel better about ourselves. And those are some of the 2 other legs called the emotional and the mental legs. So we can go on some kind of a plan. We put on a few pounds. We go on a diet and we go ahead and lose the weight. We feel better ourselves. But the next emotional trigger that comes along, and bam, we are off that plan, and we have a hard time getting back on it. So part of the work that I do is not just identifying the emotional triggers, but helping the client to actually recognize that it's an emotional trigger and give them both the nutritional support to address the trigger, but also the conscious awareness of that's a trigger that means that a emotion or some kind of a issue has come to surface to be healed. And this is their opportunity to heal this imbalance in the emotional realm, and then transmute it to love, and then the trigger basically goes away. So I like to say sometimes that I'm kind of like BASF. They say that we don't make the stuff, we just make it better. So some of the work that I do is I don't take the stress away, I just take the reaction that the body has to the stress away. So I change that internal dialogue so that you don't view the stress as a stress, and then you don't have to have food as a coping mechanism, or exercise, or over-exercise, or no exercise, or some kind of form of self-punishment of a rigid nutrition plan or something else to be the comfort or the replacement for the pain that you're experiencing. So you inflict some other kind of pain to cover up the initial pain, which is just the trigger and the emotional issues that occurred in your typically childhood. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and you mentioned in particular the thing about something about the gut, I believe. I'm very familiar with that because, well, for one, I've started taking probiotics. Once a year, I take probiotics for anywhere from 30. Well, it's going to be a little more than 30 days now because I need to finish up a certain stash. Before it expires, get them from Alex Jones and his friends at InfoWars. People say you can't trust anything with Alex Jones, but his products seem to get positive reviews, so I see no reason why I can. And I was told by someone at a conference that I went to, the 5D Events conference, David Said, the guy who runs that he seemed to have the ability to tap into me somehow, and he said probiotics seem to be the thing that you need to take that I'm detecting, and well, I seem to have a little better digestion since I've started taking them over the past week, and well, they say that if there's something wrong with your gut, your digestive system, then there's a lot of things in your body that can go out of balance. and I don't want to gross a lot of people out, but I do get diarrhea more than the average person does. And some people say, well, that's not good. Well, I assert, no, it is good because I've heard some presenters have said if you get a lot of diarrhea, that's a sign that your body is, and you're following a healthy lifestyle. That's a sign that your body is doing everything it can to flush out anything that's bad. It's at a high spiritual level. It's you'd rather get diarrhea than be constipated if you had a choice between the two. And the probiotics have only improved my digestion and all that. So when it comes, but how exactly does this work? Because I mean, you're putting germs into your body with a probiotic. I mean, and the name probiotic, some would say, well, isn't that the opposite of an antibiotic? Like
Well, it
antibiotics
is.
are okay. Maybe you can explain this a little better and how
Go
this
ahead.
works.
Finish your question.
Well, okay. Well, I know I filibuster my guests a lot and I ask a lot of questions at once, but aside what I want, one question I do have is, I mean, hypothetically, if someone were to take an antibiotic because they have a disease like Lyme disease that needs an antibiotic, and they're also taking a probiotic too to improve their gut health, do they actually, is the antibiotic and the probiotic going to cancel out each other, for one? And second of all, can you explain maybe the whole idea behind if you improve your gut, then you improve your overall body health in many ways, because the gut does seem to connect to a lot of other areas of the body physically and spiritually.
Yeah, so in terms of antibiotic, just to make it easy, the antibiotics, yeah, they kill pretty much anything and everything in the gut. And you always have the beneficial flora, and we just call it flora. So there's good bugs and there's not as good bugs. And typically they're all in balance in the gut. So stress will cause the balance to tip so that there are less good bugs and more of the less beneficial bugs. So things like Candida is considered more like the non-beneficial bug. And when you have those, when you have stress, because this is the biggest culprit to this gut imbalance that starts, then the stress basically, one, you're stressed. What do you typically eat when you're stressed? It's not green food. It's not typically the foods, the green vegetables, the raw and cooked that feed the good bacteria. It's typically sugar, wheat, carbohydrates, and all sorts of different forms of sugars that feed the non-beneficial bacteria. But they're all supposed to be there in balance. So when you get sick and you get put on a probiotic, so something like Lyme's disease is a little bit more extreme. But let's say, you get whatever cold it is and you need to be on antibiotics. The antibiotics will knock down the non-beneficial or the not so good ones down to a level where they're supposed to be, and then but it also knocks down the good ones as well. So you do need to add the probiotics when you're taking the antibiotics, but you don't want to take them at the same time. Meaning, if you're taking a antibiotic at 6 a.m., you've got to take that probiotic either 2 hours before or 4 hours after. So same thing with Lyme's. You're taking high dose antibiotics, and then you've got to take 2 different strains alternating days at 2 to 4 hours before or after you take the antibiotic. Otherwise, you are basically getting a net gain of nothing. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So
Also, okay,
that's
continue.
the whole antibiotic probiotic thing. Now, stress. We're going to go back to the stress, because stress is it could be mental, physical, emotional, environmental, stress from the food, stress from the way you eat, stress from socializing, stress from work, stress from moving, stress from not moving, stress from over moving. All these things are stresses, and the adrenals can't tell the difference. But that stress can sometimes be something that we can cope with, and we do need some stress to be able to strengthen the body. But if we have too much stress, then the body actually starts getting weaker. And a lot of it is because we start making food choices that weaken the gut imbalance. So again, it's if we start eating more sugar foods, that being, starches, cookies, pasta, bread, um, candy, these are all some of our coping mechanisms for when we're stressed. And that feeds actually the less beneficial bacteria and the less beneficial flora. But it's not supposed to be there at all. It's supposed to be there in balance with the other ones. There's millions of different strains of bugs, so to speak, in the gut. So we're trying to make sure that it's all in balance. But stress will be the thing that causes the imbalance. Stress will create an environment where the less beneficial bacteria will grow better. It causes acidity, and they love acidity. It causes us to crave sugar, and they love sugar. But then those same food items do nothing for the better probiotics. So then the less beneficial ones get an overgrowth, and then that can contribute to perforations basically in the intestinal wall, which then create leaky gut syndrome. And then there are ways that your body starts having food allergies, food sensitivities, skin issues, eczema. It could have the imbalance where you're talking about with the gut in terms of bowel movements, and there are some people where it alternates from diarrhea to constipation and somewhere in between, and it's trying to rebalance that intestinal tract to restore that balance, and the one way to do it is to add those probiotics. But the key part with supplements is you want to add the probiotics to restore the balance. My job is also to restore the balance and retain that balance by helping you work on stress minimization and stress management, doing the energy work to really help with, well, what is stressing you and why are you viewing that as a stress? Is there a way to reframe that so that you can choose a different solution and it's no longer a stress to you? And once your mind is no longer affected by these emotional triggers and the mental self-judgment and self-loathing minimizes, then those cravings for sweets and carbohydrates and other things that we have judged as not good foods to eat and not healthy foods, they just kind of go away because we have the balance in the mind, we have the balance in the emotions, and then the gut starts to balance as well because we naturally start choosing the foods that feed the good gut flora, and we no longer choose the foods, or we choose them less often, that feed the not as beneficial flora. So it's all about trying to find that balance, but really trying to say, okay, yeah, you can take probiotics, but we need to restore the balance. And it's more than just taking a bottle of probiotics and be done with it. It's about helping the client understand that there are emotional and mental components to that imbalance, as well as nutritional related issues in terms of nutrients and foods that you can eat to help restore that balance and continue to maintain that balance. So it's all part of that physical part, but understanding that there's always a combination of the mental and emotional aspects that are contributing to it. So if I only look at just the nutritional aspect, then I'm kind of not looking at the whole body. And I'm really doing just part of the work that should be done in order to restore whole body health. So when you're talking about the gut balance, it's more than just add some probiotics and you're done.
Thank you very much for explaining that. And let's get into the subject of the food guide pyramid, because this is one area of misinformation and brainwashing that my generation is very familiar with, because around the time I was really, really young. That was when they changed from 4 food groups to 6. But I remember seeing a recent talk on Alfred Weber's exopolitics program where some lady, nutrition expert of sorts, explained that the food guide pyramid that we see is totally flat out wrong. I mean, she said like they had to put fruits and vegetables on there to maintain the illusion that they were trying to make things give us healthy advice. I mean, otherwise they would know it's a health scam. But the idea that we only need 3 to 5 servings of vegetables and 2 to 4 servings of fruits and should get 6 to 11 servings of the bread, cereal,
Greens.
rice, and pasta group. And well, she even may go as far as saying that the dairy and the meats group, we're not as human beings, we're not really supposed to be eating that stuff. For all intents and purposes, we're supposed to be vegetarian. And also the fats and the oils, they put that at the very top saying use sparingly. No, fats and oils, that's if you're talking about good fats and all, that should, if anything, be where the bread, cereal, rice, and pasta group is. So are you
Yeah.
familiar with how the food guide pyramid that we've been brainwashed to following is totally screwed up? And if so, can you explain what the food guide pyramid should actually look like if they wanted to tell us the accurate health guidelines?
Well, I totally agree that the food pyramid is made by pharma and the FDA and other industries that are that benefit from it. And part of that change of the food pyramid, I think, also came around during the war, where they needed to do something with the excess wheat because now we don't have a war and we've got all this wheat, so it's got to go someplace. So we need to eat 6 to 11 servings of grains a day. Well, that only works if you're, an athlete working out 10 hours a day. Then that might be an actual correct number. But most of us are not even doing an hour's worth of exercise a day. The grains, those need to be minimized. If you only had to make one change, I would actually make 2 or 3 changes on the food pyramid as it exists today. First off, I would switch the vegetables and the grains. So you really need 6 to 8 servings of vegetables a day to be healthy, not 6 to 8 servings of grains. In terms of the servings of grains, that kind of depends on the person. I'm actually grain free, so I eat grains very sparingly once in a while, but I do eat my root vegetables because they're real food. They come from the ground. They're easy to digest, a lot of nutrients. And so the first switch would be 6 to 8 servings of vegetables a day. Fruits, it depends on the individual. Animal proteins, it depends on the individual, but it could be three servings a day. It could be 1. It could be 5. And it depends on your activity level. It depends on your build. It depends on your blood type. It depends on your ancestry. It depends on a whole lot of things. So to make one pyramid for everybody can be challenging, but I would say that the animal proteins, anywhere from 1 to 3 servings a day would be my recommendation. Fats, yeah, you probably need 3 to 6 servings of fats a day as opposed to sparingly. So those would be the 3 things that I would change in terms of the food pyramid to be a little bit more in line with how it really should be. So, but most people follow that thing as if it's gold, and it really isn't. That's why so many people have health issues, is because that food pyramid is basically upside down.
Yeah, upside down. That's a good way of putting it. Well, some other ways to get nutrition if you're poverty stricken and can't really afford to buy really, really healthy food. I mean, I shop at Whole Foods. I'm really pissed off that Amazon bought Whole Foods. That's only lower the quality. And however, the 365 store brand at Whole Foods, that's basically maybe the best store brand of any brand you can get that's not farmer's market. So I still think I'm getting some good out of it when I shop there. However, I don't buy organic if there's unless it's on sale and cheaper than the conventional fruits. I mean, I don't really think it's necessary, and some people that are really poverty stricken wouldn't want to get organic because they can't afford it. And some people say, well, the same would also be true with like getting multivitamins. Some multivitamins like Tangerine. When I was at Franco De Nicola's retreat in the Toronto forest areas, he asked about Tangerine, and he said it's too expensive to import to Canada. So, I mean, that's another problem. They can't necessarily afford all these vitamins that will provide what food cannot provide for you alone. And well, you do have options, I assert. I mean, you talk a lot about spirit, and when it comes to spiritual nutrition, there's a couple of options you have. One I do, sun gazing. Some people say it's bad for the eyes, but I assert no. If you do it during the first hour of sunrise, the last hour of sunset, open eyes, it's not going to hurt your eyes because the UV index is at 0. I mean, during the middle of the day, it's better to do it with closed eyes, although I'm sure there are some people who are such in tune and have such a high level of consciousness, power, essence that they have the ability to look at the sun in the middle of the day with open eyes and not suffer any damage, although I do not recommend doing that. And there's another way you can get nutrition, and this is something we did at Mount Shasta, which I, by the way, actually won a lottery ticket drawing to a conference. Lucky me. But anyhow, Mount Shasta conference that I was at, one lady was like, stick your arms out, open your fingers, ask source and nature to nourish you with all the nutrients that your body needs. It will answer you and make sure you're in the right state of mind. And that's one way to get nutrition, and it works on the grounds that, well, everything is consciousness. And I spoke when I interviewed Dr. Joe Wallach, who's a naturopathic. He does not seem to believe that sun gazing works, but he did seem to believe that this idea that I said about asking nature and source to feed you in like a natural environment, it can be done anywhere, but natural environment is probably definitely the best energies for it. He seemed to believe, yeah, I do believe that you can do that because I do subscribe to the idea that everything is consciousness. So, well, I've given my 2 cents on this. What do you have to say about these subject matters to give nutrition for mind, body, spirit, and sport?
So everything is really all about putting it all into balance. You know, the people that have less money, okay, they can go to the food bank, and there's actually close to me, Whole Foods actually donates a lot of things to the local food bank. So those less fortunate are actually quite fortunate because they do get some of the organic items that have been donated through Whole Foods at the food pantry. So in terms of, you know, I was listening to a lecture about, you know, it was actually through in a spiritual group that I was in, and they're like, oh yeah, this guy was going to write this, you know, the perfect nutrition for everybody. And then he's someplace in the remote, who knows where, and he wanted some coffee, and the only coffee that was available was from a vending machine. And everybody looked at him and was like, you're going to drink that? I'm just going to bless it and I'm going to drink it. It's what's available. So sometimes you really have to kind of look at it from that spiritual aspect of, this is what's available. I'm going to ask God, I'm going to ask the source, I'm going to ask the universe to bless this food so that I get the most nourishment from this food. So regardless of what it is, I will get what I need from the food that I'm eating. So it's finding that balance, and it's like, okay, does everybody have to go organic? I don't believe everybody has to do organic because right now it is cost prohibitive. You know, should everybody have a garden themselves? Well, it'd be great if they could, but it's not possible for everybody, and it's not feasible for everyone. Can you do the local farms and the local farmers markets? Absolutely. But, you know, again, if you're strapped for money, that might not be the best alternative either. But it's really doing the best you can with what you have available to you and focusing on what's going to be imported from countries far, far away to get extra nutrients. They might not be nutrients that you need in the climate that you're in. So a lot of work that I do on the physical level also includes asking about where's your ancestry from? Because we adapt, animals adapt, the plants adapt. Everybody adapts to changes in the environment. So the food that we have in the environment that we were raised in, or from our origins, you know, my whole family is from northeastern Europe. So my body wants foods that are customary to that area, not just because I grew up with it as well, but because my body wants those kinds of things. My body doesn't really crave bananas all the time because bananas are not a readily available item in the climate that I'm in. So once in a while I can eat them, but but eating them every day, it's not going to be beneficial for me or my body. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I'm sure we'll get back to the subject of diet in a little bit, but I would want to another thing I want to discuss. Um, if you're suffered some sort of an injury, Dr. Joe Wallach has asserted when I interviewed him that probably the best way to heal an injury is just increase your intake of if it's like a broken bone or a ligament, it's just increase your intake of vitamins and minerals to have the injury heal faster. And because he asserts that all illnesses are some sort of nutrient deficiency to some degree, and all injuries can be healed faster by increasing your intake of, well, specific nutrients that can heal that. And I want to heal myself with my heel injury, no pun intended. Maybe you can help me with this. I suffered a very unpleasant injury on Independence Day when I was playing in the creek, being one with nature, and then I slipped on a rock and then banged my heel into a rock, and it didn't break anything, but it bruised badly, and I've been limping ever since, and it's kept me out of yoga, it's kept me out of Tai Chi, it's kept me out of Aikido, and I can't even go walking through nature at sunset. It's such a bummer. But is there any advice you can give for my injury and also any other general injuries? Like if you don't break something, but you got a bad bruise and there's a lot of swelling, like what nutrients are specifically good for something like that?
So I'm not of the opinion that just adding nutrients, injuries are a cause of nutrient deficiencies. I am really of the opinion that, like what happened to you? You slip and fall. Okay, so maybe that was God's way of saying, pay a little bit closer attention to where you put your feet. But you have an injury, you've got inflammation. The inflammation isn't going away. You need to be on an anti-inflammatory diet. That is one of the key things. In order to speed healing, we need to be able to eliminate the inflammation that is created from the foods that we ingest so that the body's natural healing can be activated to its full potential. So there's also essential oils that can help with some of that swelling. There's something like, when you first bang up your leg or your heel. I actually had a fall the other week where I landed. It was actually a bike accident where I cut the corner and a car decided that they would extend the corner. So the two of us kind of collided, and I basically landed on the car hood with my left thigh. Bike is fine, but my left thigh was kind of compressed. So I put some arnica gel on there. I put a deep blue, which is a essential oil blend by doTERRA that has wintergreen, camphor, peppermint, and a few other things that basically help to increase the circulation, plus kind of cool it down. I added some ginger, turmeric, and copaiba oils, and all those I rubbed in and did some gentle massage on that area a couple times a day, and put the essential oils on with the turmeric probably twice a day. And within a couple days, it was fine. So it may be that in order to get that to heal, one is we might have to introduce an anti-inflammatory diet. I have a recipe actually on my website for an item called the J Shake. My clients named it, but it's an anti-inflammatory elixir, which has basically greens, some pineapple, some ginger and turmeric root, parsley, kale, apples, and a couple other things that are all anti-inflammatory, and it basically puts it all together into one smoothie that you can just drink 8 to 12 ounces a day, and it knocks down a lot of that inflammation so that the body can heal a lot faster. But it's also about reducing the intake of sugar and wheat, which are typically inflammatory, and avoiding the any kind of hydrogenated fats, any kind of artificial sweeteners, artificial colors, and things like that, because those are all as well inflammatory. So it's kind of a combination of, depending on what the injury is and what has happened, in order to speed up the healing, we have to increase the body's ability to heal and reduce the inflammation on those the physical areas. And sometimes essential oils just kind of boost the process. Sometimes supplements boost the process. If you had actually damaged a tendon, there's actually a supplement protocol that helps to nourish the tendons. If you broke bones, then if you broke bones, then it's a totally different. You still want to do the anti-inflammatory diet, but there's a supplement line. I typically work with Metagenics, and they have a whole bone builder line that when you take the bone builder and you do the anti-inflammatory diet, those bones heal way faster than they normally would.
Thank you for the advice there. I don't think I've broken anything. It's just a bad bruise, and still
Yeah.
a bummer though that not being able to go for these nature walks and do Tai Chi yoga and Aikido. Hopefully it'll heal up. I've stopped limping tremendously, but I'm still a little bit
Yeah,
there.
I mean that's the key thing is like the imbalances start when you have an injury like that, but it's trying to kind of keep the circulation going. So you might actually want to rub it a little bit and maybe even just with an ice cube, but kind of keep the circulation going so that the damaged area has that blood flow to bring the beneficial stuff and actually flush out the non-beneficial stuff. So it's not that you have to, knead it because it's going to hurt, but you want to basically give it some, like a light massage to kind of just get the circulation there so that the healing speeds up. And I don't know if you have access to essential oils, but that's something that could be an option too.
Essential oils not at the moment, although I do have some Himalayan salt. I put a bag of Himalayan salt on that, and I've also asked Archangel Raphael to help and seem to do some temporary work there, some temporary help. So kudos to Archangel Raphael. But moving on to what you want to say. Okay.
Well, I also say that if it's not healing, sometimes it's our impatience that is the issue. But there may be some other underlying reason why it's not healing, and it could be one of those emotional issues or some mental thing or a belief system. So this is an easy distraction from actually going in that direction.
Well, that kind of makes sense. I mean, being an Aries, I need to learn how to be patient. And some of my recent horoscopes the past few days have actually said you need to take things a little slowly. And could it be that this is nature's way of telling me slow down a bit? You're working a little too hard. I don't know. Maybe it is. I also got bad poison ivy on my arm from trying to pick up a lot of litter. That's the price you pay for trying to help society, but it is what it is.
And maybe the common theme here might be just be careful where you help and how you help. It's like, okay, so you're doing a good deed, but you still have to check your surroundings to make sure you don't have poisonous plants in the area when you're doing it. You might need to take some extra precautions. It's kind of like, me cutting the corner. It wasn't really, some people could say, well, you're rushing. Why were you rushing around that corner? You knew it was a blind corner. Your message here is, don't cut corners. Well, maybe that is it. But in my case, it's like, well, it's really don't rush. Just be present where you are and be aware of your surroundings, but just be aware so that these things don't happen in the future. And that's why, the first time I've hit a car in 30 years of riding my bike. So to me, it's not like some magical sign that the universe is giving me and I have to spend hours trying to think about it. But if your heel is not healing, then it might be time to kind of look at some of the other aspects too. And is there a hidden message in there? And it's really only you can tap into it through either energy work or meditation or guided meditation. The work that I do with the Path to Heal can oftentimes identify where that issue lies and really kind of bring clarity to the situation so that the body can start healing more, because we just want to feel good and be able to do anything and everything that we want to do. Right.
Right. And, You mentioned the thing earlier about increasing blood flow to the area. Now, this that kind of reminds me of something that seems that our attitude towards stretching has actually changed, like what it used to be. Back in the day, they used to say stretch before and after exercise, but nowadays it seems that the common theme is no, stretch after exercise. Before exercise, it's better to do a light warm up. There was actually an Australian study
Right.
done by military personnel say that where they found that stretching before exercise does not appear to prevent any sort of muscle injury. Do you have any idea why that is the case, and what exactly caused people to believe that stretching before exercise is, well, actually, it's kind of a bad thing to stretch before exercise. It actually makes you weaker if you stretch too much. I mean, it makes you more flexible, but the price is you temporarily get a little bit weaker. But everybody thought, no, you're supposed to stretch before exercise, but no, it doesn't seem to do squat for you. It's only after the exercise.
Yeah, well, if you talk to 100 people, you'll get 100 people telling you a totally different answer. So, and I'm a nutritionist and an athlete. I'm not a doctor to be able to tell you whether it's this way or that way or it's supposed to be. And I'm sure that there's always going to be one person or two that fall out of the bell curve on the two extremes. So, generally speaking, yeah. Probably you need some kind of a little bit of a warm-up stretching as opposed to excessive stretching. And I think that's the key part is it's all about finding that balance. Should you maybe go for a 5-10 minute walk before you actually do some stretching? Sure. Can you do it just from doing nothing and just doing some mobility extension kind of warm-up? I think that is more beneficial as a warm up or a stretching is more like range of motion exercises where they're not really stretches, they're really increasing the range of motion and getting the blood flow to get going. But most of the things that I have read in the past, I don't know, 10-15 years have also indicated, yeah, do some kind of a warm up before you do some static stretching. Just doing it cold is going to actually weaken the ligaments as opposed to strengthen the ligaments. So you may actually increase your injury rate as opposed to lessening it.
Fair enough. Looking at your little banner here on your website, the Nutrition Motion website, you see you got what appears to be a tomato, a pepper, a drink of some sort, some celery,
A drink of some sort, that's water.
okay, it's water. And I also see a fish. Now, the thing about the fish, when I see that, I'm thinking of the Inuit and Eskimos from the Native American tribes from the land of the midnight sun area, northern Canada, Yukon, Alaska area. Those people, they barely have any if vegetables and fruits in their diet. They can't grow that stuff in that climate.
Right.
But yet they seem to have a very, very healthy bodies and are in great shape and all that. So what exactly is the secret when all they can basically eat is beneath the ice seafood? How do they do it?
Well, and most of the seafood up there is also high in the beneficial essential fatty acids. So, the colder the climate, the more fat you need in order to help you actually generate heat. Otherwise, they'd all freeze to death if they were eating all vegetables, But if you go down to Ecuador, where it's closer to the sun and it's a much warmer climate, they don't need that much in terms of animal proteins. And they might have fish, but they're not going to eat that much fish. And it's probably not going to be all that fish blubber kind of fish in that area as it would be up in the Arctic. So it kind of goes along with what I had mentioned earlier about, you've got to eat based on the climate that you're in, but also from where your ancestries came. So if your ancestry is Eskimo, then you move down to Brazil, your diet is going to change somewhat because of the climate, but you're still going to do very well on fatty fish. So the body does what it needs and gets the nutrients that it needs from the area that it's in the climate that it's in. So those people don't eat vegetables and they seem to be healthy just fine. So there's no, they need to go to a paleo diet. Well, they're eating their Paleolithic diet. That's what's available, fish.
Right, and also they also make sure that they don't, I'm sure they don't let the fish go to waste. I remember seeing this documentary on the Discovery Channel. Some guy was lost at sea, and when he was catching his fish, he made sure not just to eat the muscle flesh part of the fish, but the scales, the eyes, and the guts, and everything else that goes with it, to make sure that he got a little bit of everything. And that's where all
Yeah,
the other nutrients are. And do the Eskimos, do they also do that? Do they make sure that they actually, do they even go as far as grinding the bones up and eating the bones to
you know,
not let it go to waste?
I have no idea what Eskimos do because I don't live in that climate and I have never worked with an Eskimo. But I did see something a couple months ago, like on the not it wasn't a National Geographic, but it might have been something close. But it was I think it was part of somewhere in Antarctica, in one of um, they would basically catch all the fish and they would actually dehydrate them, but put them out on lines outside in the sun. And it's kind of like what we do with sun-dried tomatoes, but they were doing sun-dried fish. So that way they would have it at other times when they needed it, so that they could put it into a broth and, put their dried fish into boiling water and have themselves a rehydrated meal. This is also why a lot of people, in I'm sure in Alaska, they can still do farming in the summer months, but this is why a lot of people did canning and fermenting of their vegetables, so that they would have those foods to eat over the winter. And guess what? Those fermented vegetables are also the things that have the probiotics to help to balance that gut, so that people would be less sick in the winter, because they are not eating as much of the greenery that they normally would in the summer. And also they're more stressed from being inside and less active.
Yes, and speaking of stress, well, different kind of stress on the body. I have been criticized by a lot of people, from my family members to people at conferences, that they tell me, dude, you gotta lose that gut, man. Yeah, I'm a little fat, but I like it. I'm about 5'11", only 30 pounds away from the 300 mark, about 270. So I got a little bit of a beer belly here, but I actually like it. I mean, I tell people I take a beer belly over a six pack any day, because I like that defensive lineman physique. And they say, well, okay, maybe you like it, but do you ever worry about it coming back to haunt you? And I say, no, I don't think so. I mean, if mind over matter is for real, then why could I not possibly overpower it? I mean, it's easier said than done, I'm sure, but I mean, it can be done. And even though I am a little pudgy, I am more athletic than I appear to be, as proved by the fact that I walk very, very long distances out in nature. It takes a long time for me to get out of breath. And I mean, you watch me on the dance floor at some of the conferences I've been to during the parties. I can really, really move, and seem to have more athletic than I appear to be. I'm sure that yoga and Tai Chi and Aikido has really helped me do that. But I mean, am I actually, dare I say, going about it the wrong way? And do you have any advice for me, for people that actually like being a little overweight and prefer the beer belly over the six pack? What can I do to assure myself that I can still live a nice, healthy life, even though I actually want to be pudgy over being, well, normal weight?
Well, so this kind of brings up a couple of things, because one is, you know what, if you're happy there, then fine. It's when you're unhappy in that place that becomes more of a problem, so to speak. So you understand that it might not be the healthiest, but you feel fine at that level, but you're also equating it to a completely different extreme, which at 5'11", and you're, 5'11", that would mean that you'd have to be half the size that you are now, and to get that six pack abs. So that's kind of an extreme from where you are, and it might not be a comfortable lifestyle for you at all, because it may feel completely restrictive, as opposed to, well, right now I can eat whatever the heck I want. But it's trying to find that balance and saying, okay, I know it doesn't really bother you, and I know I could tell you the 30 things, and I'm just making up a number, 30 reasons why, you need to trim down, and let's just pick a number of 80, so that you're closer to 200. That would be a healthier weight for you. But to get to that level is it could be very restrictive and it could be really hard, and that could actually be more damaging on a mental level than anything else. And and to be in a restrictive mode may not be something that's helpful for you in the long run. You know what I mean? So it's really not telling you about all the health concerns that are there, but the first thing that popped in is if it doesn't bother you, then, whatever. Just keep doing what you're doing, and it's not going to be an issue until it's an issue. And then maybe that'll be the wake up call, to make some kind of a change. If you want to do something that's fairly simple, my suggestion is, you know what? Do an anti-inflammatory diet. It may help with decreasing some of the inflammation and decreasing a lot of the health risks that are associated with being overweight. You know what I mean? So if you had to do one thing, I would suggest an anti-inflammatory diet, and that may actually help to change the way the body's metabolizing, and also changing the way that the body reacts to stress and reacts to a whole bunch of other things, that it starts to release some of those fat stores, just because a lot of that could be actually inflammation from some of the foods that you're eating.
Well, thank you very much for getting into that. Now, when it comes to, I see nutrition for mind, body, spirit, and sport. I mean, are you the kind of person that, like, if someone said, I play this sport, what kind of diet and what kind of exercises should I do? Are you that kind of a person in that regard? And would you say that there are general, like, guidelines for, like, specific sports in general regarding what you should eat and what kind of exercise you should do? It's a broad subject, I know, but
there's always going to be some kind of recommendations for, the body type, the this, the that, something else, And my general philosophy is, if you don't love doing it, then don't do it. Going and walking on a treadmill isn't going to do you any good if you dread the whole thing. There's a reason why most of us call it the dread mills, because it's really pain and suffering. In terms of, I like to call it, instead of calling it exercise, I like to call it movement therapy. It's something that makes you feel good. So it becomes therapy for the mind, and then it becomes therapeutic for the body as well, because it's just producing the positive endorphins and making you feel better about yourself and feeling better about life. And it's minimizing some of the stress that's out there. And heck, when we move, that's a lot of times when we have that stillness of the mind to get the brilliant ideas of what to do later or how to fix the world's problems while we're out for that walk or the bike ride or whatever it is that we're doing. So what I do is not really based on, I don't recommend specific activities for people, because I'm not a coach in that regard, in terms of a triathlon coach or a cycling coach or a running coach. I do teach people how to swim, but that's really a different thing, where I'm actually teaching them a life skill to be fully comfortable in water. The nutrition part, there are some guidelines depending on what kind of exercise you do. I don't typically say all swimmers need to eat this, all, runners need to eat this. This is how it's got to be for everybody, because everybody's a little bit different, whether you're male or female, whether you're a teenager, in your 20s, in your 50s, in your 70s, it's all going to be a little bit different based on the activity that you have, but it's also based on your schedule in general during the whole day, and how do you handle stress? When are you eating? Are you training in the morning or training in the evening or doing it at lunchtime? What else is going on in your life, so we can balance that all together and make sure that you get the nutrients in to fuel the workout, but also to fuel the recovery. Because there's no point in, you going and doing whatever it is for an hour and a half, and then you don't eat all day. You're not fueling the recovery. So then within 2-3 days, you might be either tired or you set yourself up for injury, because now you're not getting the nutrients to actually fuel the muscles or any other tendons or bones or anything else to actually keep you active.
Thank Thank you for getting into that. And I mentioned earlier that human beings were, for all intents and purposes, were supposed to be herbivores. We're not really supposed to be omnivores. I'm glad that my meat eating habits have. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to give up eating meat entirely. I always say you were to graph my meat eating habits, it's basically a hyperbola where it gets closer and closer and closer to zero, but never actually reaches zero. That's what I expect my meat eating habits to be. The only meat I buy when I go at Whole Foods is chicken. And I mean, I still eat eggs. I'm trying to give up butter and all. And
Oh, don't
well,
give up butter. Do not give up butter.
okay.
There's no reason. There's absolutely no reason to give up butter.
Well, what about
That's
olive oil?
that's
Isn't
what
olive
I tell
oil a
people.
better substitute? What it wouldn't be make
No,
sense? Really?
no, it's not a better or worse substitute. But there's nothing wrong with butter. Stay away from the margarine. Stay
Okay.
away from all that stuff that's newfangled. It tastes like butter, but it's not butter. That's the stuff to stay away from. That's the inflammatory stuff.
Oh
But
yeah, I can believe that.
butter's
Um,
been around for a million years, and there some people are better off as vegetarians and other people are better off as omnivores, and it's trying to find that balance for every person. I personally will be dead in 2 weeks if I just went vegan.
I couldn't imagine going vegan, but one thing about the diet that about milk. What do you have to? First of all, what do you have to say about milk?
Well, there's a lot of theories on that one too. If your body can digest it and process it, then I'm not a person to say, oh, you have to avoid this or you have to eat this. If your body can tolerate it, then fine, but don't make all your meals cheese. You know, don't make all your meals have, don't drink a gallon of milk in 2 days and think that it's okay. If you're going to choose milk, choose organic, choose grass-fed as often as possible, and also um, make sure it's the real thing made with the whole milk.
Yeah, whole milk is the way to go. That's the most natural compared to 1% and 2% in skim. It's not in your best
It's been
interest to
adulterated.
get the yeah. And although there have been some programs coming out recently saying the human body really isn't designed to take milk, and the best way to get calcium is through leafy green vegetables and not
Well,
milk.
I would
But like
agree
you
with
say,
that. I would agree with the body's most absorbable form of calcium is actually in green leafy vegetables. The calcium that is in the milk protein, it's bound in such in molecules where even though ounce per ounce it has the most amount of calcium in it, it is one of the least absorbable forms of calcium that the body can have. So it doesn't absorb that calcium at all, or it's very limited.
yeah, that was another issue that they talked about. But then again, well, is that true with all the vitamins? Because the thing about milk, it has a little bit of every vitamin to some degree. But then
So a
again, is it
little
hard to
bit,
absorb it?
yeah, so a little bit might be okay, but a lot of it, this is again finding balance. It's about finding the balance for each individual person. I now put whole milk. I put heavy whipping cream into my coffee every morning. It's an amazing combination. I don't have to put honey in there. I don't have to put any sweetener. It's just like I just put my dollop of cream in there. And like the rage now is the bulletproof coffee. I just put my heavy cream in there. There's my keto coffee.
Okay, and moving on to another controversial food that whether some people say humans should or should not eat it, eggs, and particularly chicken eggs. Now, chicken eggs seem to blur the line. Is it dairy or is it meat? I mean, they say it can't be dairy because it does come from cows, but it can't be meat because it's not muscle of the animal. I mean, it could be, for all intents and purposes, considered a chicken dairy, but I'm not really here to debate whether it's dairy or meat. I'm more inclined to debate whether or not it's good for you or not. I mean, the whole idea about eggs causing strokes and heart attacks from the cholesterol, that's bullcrap because 100% of the cholesterol in eggs is good cholesterol. However, all the vegans out there are going to assert that eating eggs is not good for you, and the fact that it is nature's multivitamin in a sense with all the vitamins and minerals in the yolk, it's beside the point. That's not important. Even and all the bodybuilders who are trying, because they say egg whites are the best protein for building muscle. Well, okay, but you're still not supposed to be eating it because it's an animal product, the vegans say. How do we
Yeah.
make sense of this confusion here?
Well, it's a believe what you want to believe. You know, I've heard also that, the egg is the perfect food. And cholesterol, I'm just going to go on a tangent here about the cholesterol. Cholesterol, your body needs cholesterol. The reason why people's cholesterol is going up is not because they're eating more cholesterol. It's because they're stressed out of their fucking mind. So the more stressed you are, the more cholesterol your body will produce. It's just that's the balance. So if you have more stress, your body will create more cholesterol. If you eat more cholesterol, your body will produce less of the cholesterol to balance it out because you're getting it from food sources. Your brain thrives on cholesterol. It thrives on fat. Eggs are actually, the yolk especially, it's brain food. That's where the nutrients are. So the vegans, they can say what they want, and they can, make their egg-like products from flax and tofu, but it's not going to have the nutrients that an egg has. And it's not considered a meat, but it is an animal protein. It is derived from a chicken. Chickens, the chicken is not harmed by laying an egg. So if the vegans have issues with it, it's probably because they have issues with the humane treatment of animals in general. So anything coming from a chicken, whether it's an egg or anything else, is going to be taboo to them. So the cholesterol thing, eggs have cholesterol. It feeds the brain. It's a good thing. Some people do better with it. Some people don't do well with it. Stick with the organic. Try to get the free range. If you can get a local farm, that's even better, that has their eggs, and their chickens are running around, in the backyard. Those are the eggs that you really want. Those are the ones that are going to be the beneficial, packed with nutrients and really good for you. My dad is 91, and my mom's 84. You know what? They eat an egg every single day. They're doing fine. So the egg's not the problem. It's something else that is an issue that other people create, whether it's their belief system or something else. These things have been around for how many millions of years? Eating eggs is not something that we just started doing 60 years ago. We've been doing it for longer than that. So I think it depends on where you live and what your culture is and what your belief systems are as to whether you should or should not eat eggs. If you have specific health issues, yes, sometimes eggs may aggravate them, and it might be something to avoid either temporarily or permanently. But to say that humans are not supposed to eat eggs at all, I do not actually agree with that particular statement. You had a part B on that question.
Did I? I didn't really know if I did.
I think you did, because I think I only answered that one part about the cholesterol. Dairy and eggs. There's another one.
Yeah, controversy between whether eggs should be dairy or meat.
Well, they're an animal protein. So
Okay.
let's just call them an animal protein, and that makes it easy. But the reason why people get so confused about eggs or dairy is because when you go to the grocery store, where do you find eggs? In the dairy section.
Yeah. Okay.
So it has nothing to do with a cow.
But it is a feminine part of the animals, and that's milk, that's feminine, and eggs are feminine. So could you make the argument that it's chicken dairy? If that makes sense.
But I think at some grocery store decided to, it's refrigerated, let's just stick it next to the milk, and then it became the dairy section, and so everybody thinks that chickens are dairy.
Right.
It's that's really how it all became. I don't know how it became, but that's where the misconception comes from, is chickens' eggs are found they should actually put the eggs in the meat section next to the chicken thighs and chicken breasts and the whole chicken and everything else like that. That's where they should put it, so that nobody would be confused as to whether it's an animal protein or what is it.
Fair enough.
Should we do it? Should we try to go and solicit the stores to change the
No, not
where they put the eggs?
Yeah, forget about that. But speaking of soliciting, I'm kind of out of questions, except for the fact that I want to give you the opportunity to make a sales pitch out of this show. I see you have things to offer on your site. By the way, I just liked your Nutrition in Motion Facebook page, and I did send you a friend request on Facebook. If it's not too much trouble,
I'll have
maybe
to
you
look
could
for it.
get to that. But I'd like to give you the opportunity to make a sales pitch now as far as all the services that you offer and also the essential oils that you offer. Well, I guess if you're gonna want to sell the essential oils, can you please, which specific ones do you sell? Can you get into the science behind how they work too? And then after the essential oils, please get into some of the other services you offer. You can
Well,
make a sales pitch out of this. Be my guest. Take as long as you need.
so I actually have a client that's coming at 7:30, so I have
Okay.
about 15 minutes that I can. So the essential oils, that could be a whole nother topic in a different thing. I do work with mostly doTERRA, and it's really, I mean, they're made from plants. They're plant extracts. They've been medicine forever, even biblical times. There's the essential oils that were used back then. It's nature's medicine, basically. So it's about using them correctly and using them for the purpose of supporting the body in its healing process. So it could be emotional healing, it could be physical healing. So there's a lot of different things. They're highly concentrated. So it's really, you have to be careful on how you're using it. It's not something that you can eat them, you can do this, you can do that. Some of them you can ingest, some of them you need to dilute, some of them, it's just topical only or aromatic, put them in the air and dilute them. So that's the basic thing with the essential oils. I do a lot of the anti-inflammatory diet is one of the things that I work on most. And the Be Whole program is basically my signature program, besides the athletes work that I do. But the Be Whole program is really about addressing the whole nutrition for body, mind, spirit, and sport. So we first work on doing what needs to be done in terms of balancing the nutrition, balancing the physical properties, getting rid of any kind of physical symptoms, balancing the gut, balancing the brain, balancing the meal combinations, the meal timing, and then we also address the stress, because how you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, the things that you do for yourself or don't do for yourself, how you deal with those emotional triggers. That's where I weave in that energy work with the nutrition. And then the essential oils, I create a blend and a personalized spray for the support in between sessions so that it can help you with that healing process in between sessions. But that Be Whole program is really to help you find the wholeness of life again and help you really fuel all aspects of the body, not just the physical, how you eat, move, and sleep aspects. It's really helping to help you find what makes your heart sing, and just match all your activities and align your food choices to help your heart sing more often.
Well, thank you for making that sales pitch. I hope that encourages people to access your abilities and make your pocketbook a little bit bigger when after I upload this to YouTube. And with that being said, I will make sure that I convert this to a YouTube compatible format by the end of the night tonight. If I don't get it uploaded to YouTube tonight, I will by midnight tomorrow, and I will send a link to you when I do. If you could perhaps friend me on Facebook, I can just post it on your Facebook timeline.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's do that. And it was a pleasure having you on. Learned a few things myself. Very enlightening, very exciting when you have health guests. People seem to always want health guests on shows on radio. It's always something that people are more interested in having. So glad I could get you on, and maybe I'll see you at a future conference. Namaste. Take care, Joanna. Enjoy the rest of your trek to infinite consciousness. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me on. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Take care.